Deck at Pier 17. Alex Smith sticking around. Lewis Riddick ready to go. D. Wood's wife is telling him to calm down. Dan's got a lot to say. Let's do this thing. Last night, if you didn't see it, the weather was unbelievable. The quarterbacks were legendary. The Bills and the Ravens with everything at stake and the snow coming down. Lamar Jackson made the two big mistakes, Danny, in the first half. He throws the pick early and then this critical play.
Yeah, so the snap is bad, and he's trying to make something happen. We've watched Lamar Jackson make something out of nothing so consistently. It gets a slip out there, Von Miller pick up, and that leads to points. It's really a 10-point swing in this football game.
Absolutely, because it leads to this. Josh Allen will take it in for the touchdown on the sneak, and the Bills a 14-7 lead. Let's fast forward to the third quarter. Ravens are down 21-13, but their offense gets going in that second half.
And the huge part of it was they got to do what they wanted to do, which is get Derrick Henry's shoulders squared to line of scrimmage downhill and a full head of steam. That run game in the third quarter started to dominate.
They go for the two in the third quarter, Alex, and it looks like it's there to be had.
Again, I love this call. I think it's worth a conversation. Obviously, it comes back to haunt them again. If they kick it here, you're going to overtime.
That winds up, that point they leave on the field there winds up being significant. So does this. Mark Andrews, who's been such a great player, had just a terrible night. Dan, the critical fumble here.
Yeah, I consider this a takeaway, though. I think Terrell Bernard, once he realizes that Mark isn't going north and south but cuts back, you see that Peanut Tillman punch right there, hand right on the football, and it's a fantastic job of the details by Buffalo's D.
In the end, it all comes down to this. Lamar Jackson in a one-score game, down by 8, leading his team all the way down the field. A drive that would have been the stuff of legend if they'd won.
It was going to be career-changing, it felt like. The patience in the pocket, the ability to move, the remaining the passer, allowing guys the time to get open. Likely does a great job of separation here. Lamar drills that ball from about 30, and now it's the have-to-get-it moment, two-point conversion.
Two-point conversion to tie it. Remember the point they left on the field earlier, but again, it's right there. Mark Andrews, he catches that ball 100 out of 100 times, and yet in this instant, with the season in his hands, unfortunately, it falls away, and so then it comes down to this. There's never been a time when you had less of a chance to convert an onside kick than there is in the NFL today. On the frozen field, maybe that takes the big hop. It doesn't happen. And so Josh Allen and the Bills can celebrate. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens go off into another very long off season.
All year, this team has heard, we got no talent, we're too small, we can't stop the run, we're not good enough to compete. We've just put our head down and worked hard. I'm so proud of our defense, I'm so proud of our offense and special teams. What a complete win.
Every time we're in situations like this, turnovers play a factor, penalties play a factor. Tonight, the turnovers, we can't have that, and that's why we lost the game, because as you can see, we're moving the ball wonderfully. It's hold on to the ball. I'm sorry for my language, annoying. I'm tired of
He's so honest, man.
Yes.
God, he's so
real.
honest. Yeah.
It's a frustrating night, obviously. You said to me a minute ago in a break, the coach of the Ravens, John Harbaugh, what's he going to do today?
Yeah, he's going to be watching the tape, thrown up in a trash can in his office somewhere, because he's really going to have the same feelings that Lamar's having right now, which is just look at what we did here. We're moving the ball at will. We're running the ball with authority. We're capturing the line of scrimmage. Lamar's making great decisions. Wide receivers are, by and large, catching the ball, getting open. Defensively, come the second half, after the 3 first-half rushing touchdowns we gave up, we make some adjustments. We get them off the field. We get stops, which allows us to get back in the game. Justin Tucker is kicking the ball with authority, so we know if it comes down to a field goal, we're going to be in it because he looks like he's calm and he's cool and he's collected. And yet they still, in the most critical moment, Lamar and Mark Andrews came into the league together. They came to Baltimore at the same time. You're talking about a guy who has not turned the ball over since 2019. And he gets the ball punched out. Again, give Terrell Bernard a lot of credit. And you're right, that catch right there, we've seen Mark Andrews make catches 10 times more difficult than that.
Yeah.
And see, that's the kind of thing that when you're playing this game over and over again in your head as a coach, I don't know how you get over those kind of things, because you know what the narrative has been all season long, and you know what other people are saying about you, what other people said to us as a broadcast crew. Dan was sitting there. Baltimore's worst enemy is Baltimore. And these are their peers who are saying it. So they recognize it too. They recognize the team was stacked, loaded. And yet again, they're going to be watching Kansas City and Buffalo battle it out.
They had 430 yards of offense
unbelievable.
last night. The Bills had 274. There was no way watching that game not to feel as though the better team didn't win. And that's the second year in a row that we can say that. And you just can't lose. You were saying it this morning. These are the losses you never get over because these chances, you're just not. Ask Detroit. They're not guaranteed to come around again.
Second year in a row for Baltimore. Think about it. Second year in a row. Baltimore Ravens, best team in the AFC, come up short.
Most talented.
Yeah. I mean, those are the type of games that stick with you forever. And, listen, I've won 2 Super Bowls, but it's those type of games, I can give you all the details of those losses. And those losses, and those plays in that game, they're going to stick with Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. It's just going to really suck this offseason.
Okay, so let me come to my quarterbacks here because the reality is, what went wrong for Lamar? When you're the quarterback, you get too much praise probably when you win, and you get too much blame when you lose. The only one whose record this is going to go on is Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. What are the right things to say about the way he played last night?
I mean, yeah, that's unfair to put this on him. It would be wrong to put this on him. Listen, after every single game, 60-some-odd plays in a game, you look back, and we talked about this. This was an unprecedented divisional matchup, right? There were going to be a handful of plays that decide this. You turn on the film this morning, it's the 5-6 plays that we're showing that decided this game. And you don't know which ones they're going to be in the moment, right? And these were the defining plays. And usually you get a game the next week to rectify it. Yeah. This time you don't. Yeah. You're out, right? And this is going to haunt you for months, right? Months. You're going to have to put in all the work all next season and hopefully to stay healthy to get an opportunity to rectify this. Like, it's a hard pill to swallow, but that's why it makes this so great.
I want to hear from Dan.
Is it unfair?
How much of it goes on Lamar? How much, if any, goes on Lamar Jackson?
There is some that goes on Lamar, but it's not the reason why they lose the football game.
Right.
We are going to sit back. Both things could be true. Lamar was sensational, specifically in the second half. He had a vintage, almost career-changing drive. But then you do sit there, and when we were putting up those highlights, first game all season with multiple turnovers. Yeah. So that stands out because everyone knew the narrative going into the game, yes, of can Lamar be Lamar in the playoffs that he is in the regular season. Lamar is not the reason the team lost the football game. You could point to the 2-point conversion that gets dropped. You could point to the fumble. You could point to the 2-point conversion they go for where Milano bats it down, and it's a great play by Milano. You could point to the 2nd and goal where they get a sack, and then all of a sudden they go a 3-man rush and conversion on a check. Like, there's multiple reasons. Now, those turnovers lent to the loss. They had a big lend to the loss because the fumble by Lamar takes 3 points off the board and immediately becomes a touchdown for Buffalo. So that's a 10-point swing right there. So that is true to be said.
Yeah.
I can't watch that game and go, I got to pin it on Lamar.
We've seen this since the beginning of time with football, right? Look, the New England Patriots beat the greatest show on turf. No one would have picked them to win that game. Mm-hmm. Because when you're talking about the roster 1 through 53, you're looking at what the Rams had at their disposal that year and the way they were playing. You're going, the only way the Rams lose a game is they beat themselves. And New England makes some plays, which is exactly what they did. And we've seen it since the beginning of time. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We can sit here and talk about Baltimore's roster all we want. And that's only because I can hear Bills Mafia right now going, but we won the damn game.
Yeah.
And you know what? They are the better team as far as the way they executed right now, and they deserve all the flowers they're going to get because they were the better team. That doesn't mean that they have the better collection of talent.
The journey Baltimore has to go on this offseason is how do they finally get past those two teams? And we can point clearly to those two teams and those two games and say, you got to value the ball more than you do right now. It's not a lack of talent, but go back to last year. They lose that game, turnovers, and they don't run the football, okay? And then they go back to this year. They lose the game because of the turnovers. So I do think it's fair to say, like, as an organization, as a group, they do have to go on a little bit of a growth.
I don't think that they don't value the ball. Of course they value the ball. Every coach talks about this, and from day one of training camp, they talk about what are the things that we have to do in order to win a championship. One of the first things they're going to say is we better be in the top 5 in turnover differential when it comes out at the end of the year. So John Harbaugh's talking about it. You know it. But see, this is the great part about trying to evaluate players and build football teams. is trying to find how can you identify in those most critical moments that this dude is going to look the ball in and actually finish it. This guy knows this play's over. I better go ahead and cover this up and just go down and live to fight another day. How do you determine when a guy's going to be able to rise to that occasion and when they don't? That's not coaching. That comes from within the individual players. It just does. And Buffalo was able to summon that up yesterday.
I guess here's what I'm trying to say. If you just parachuted in and didn't know anything about what was going on and just watched that game, and someone said who was the best player on the field, everyone would say, oh, it was the quarterback of Baltimore.
Sure.
Right? Lamar Jackson was the best player on the field yet. Yeah, he made a few mistakes, but he more than overcame them. They had a bunch of ridiculous things happen to them that cost them that game, and by that I mean Mark Andrews, you just can't fumble in the middle of the field in a critical. It's a great play by Buffalo, but you can't have it. And then he drops the 2-point conversion. There's one questionable call on a pass interference. I mean, that game got away from them in a game in which they outplayed the other team. The better team doesn't always win. The object is not to be the better team. It's to win the game. The Bills won the game. Give them all the credit in the world. I think they're going to win next weekend. But the Ravens were the better team yesterday and didn't win.
Sure. But like, okay, you were labeled as what negatively, incorrectly your whole career?
Oh, game manager.
Okay, and what's the real difference? Like we can be honest about that. Like,
no, I don't understand what you mean.
Josh managed the game perfectly. So did all of Buffalo. James Cook managed the game. You know, Josh has got no turnovers his last 4 playoff games. Patrick's got 2 in their 8-game playoff winning streak. So that has to be a part of the conversation.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think, did you say you believe they're going to win next week?
They have a very good chance, yeah.
Why do you think they're going to win?
I saw them.
We've been having this discussion about Kansas City all year long as they went on and were 16-1.
Yeah.
Every week I'd sit here and I'd turn on and get up and I'd listen to people go, they can't keep it up. They can't keep playing like that. Look at these numbers that say they're going to lose eventually next week. Look at these numbers that say they're going to lose eventually next week. Look at these numbers that, and and Patrick's sitting there going, ha, 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 yeah.
You're picking Buffalo off aura. You just think it's their year.
I just think that Allen is ready for this. I mean, to your point, Josh Allen, they didn't need him to do much more than he did last night. I actually would, if I have some questions about a few of the decisions they made on their offensive game, and particularly on the 3rd and 2 down by the goal line. But let's not get crazy with all of that. And forget that I said I think they're going to win next week, because that's not the point of the story today. The point is not that Buffalo isn't a worthy winner. They're freaking awesome. That's Josh Allen we're talking about. What I'm saying is they needed the Ravens to give them that game, and the Ravens did.
And listen, you just said it, right? Lamar hadn't had a 2-turnover game all year. He has it at the divisional round, right?
Yeah.
They had their biggest halftime deficit all year in the divisional round, right? The margin is too small to make those kinds of errors.
That
they almost overcame it.
That,
I mean,
yeah.
But you're right.
And Lamar is that
That
almost
is exactly what Myles Garrett said.
Yeah.
Beat yourself.
When it's the most critical of times, and I'm paraphrasing it. I don't believe Myles said this exactly, but at the most critical of times,
Tighten up.
I just made, that's what happened to him. Mark Andrews sees the ball coming, right? It's like, he's wide open. He sees it, and he's just like, I mean, we've seen this happen in how many, remember the pass that Roger Staubach threw to Jackie Smith, I believe it was, in the Super Bowl against the Steelers? Like, he throws it and hits him right in his hands, and he just literally goes blink and drops it on the ground. It's like,
But
how do you explain that?
Your original question, when you asked Alex, what are we going to say about Lamar Jackson? Then we just sit here and say, but I always talk about game-winning plays.
Yeah.
You have 2 turnovers in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can sit here and say, but they were in it at the end. But you had two plays that helped determine the outcome of the game.
I think they're fascinating. I think they are going on. This offseason has to be just a fascinating mental evaluation of how to get past it, because we know they're a great team. But it's not just Lamar. It's all of them figuring out how to get past it.
I have to break quickly here. We have much more on this as we go. We also have the Eagles. Saquon, sensational in the snow. But can they fly on his wings and his alone all the way to the top of the football world? We'll get to that. Plus, of course, again, tonight's the night. Can the Fighting Irish actually upset the Buckeyes? We'll set the stage for the College Football National Championship as we get up with you on ESPN. Sensational in the snow yesterday. 2 long touchdown runs. In all, 205 rushing yards for Barkley yesterday. And that was just enough for the Eagles to get past the Rams on a snowy day in Philadelphia and advance to the NFC Championship game, which they will host next week. But I want to read several numbers from the stat sheet to my quarterbacks over here. The combination of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown yesterday, they combined, and that's about as good a 1-2 punch it should be as almost any team in the NFL has. They had 35 combined receiving yards yesterday. The Rams had 4 individual players who had more receiving yards than that. What is wrong with the Eagles' passing game, and can they possibly win 2 more games like this?
It's going to be hard to win 2 more games with the passing game like this. I would say yesterday it did look like Jalen was not confident trying to cut the ball loose in some timing and rhythm throws. Last week I felt that they were covered up. Yesterday I did think that there were opportunities for him to be just confident throwing the football. This is early on the game. They got a curl at the bottom of the screen. That flat defender towards the bottom widens. Jalen can let that ball out on time, but he doesn't, and it turns into a scramble. This one up top, A.J. Brown, he's got an out route versus press man. Trust he's going to win and throw it to the pylon. He doesn't, turns into a sack. This one, stop route at the top. He's thrown this consistently well in his career with A.J. Brown. He doesn't throw it there, turns into a scramble. And another one where I think he's got a crossing route versus man coverage. You're going to see it coming from the bottom of the screen. Climb the pocket. It's man. You can just float that ball to a space. It's clear that safety's not going to be in play. And that's that play that he gets folded up dangerously on. I do think that there were moments yesterday where he could have just been confident and convicted with what he was looking at and cut it loose. And there's a completion there, and he just did it. He didn't look like he was very confident in that.
What did you see, Alex?
No, I agree. And listen, this passing game, and we've seen it from this offense all year, it is conservative by nature. Yes. And Jalen is conservative with the football by nature. Listen, he's risk adverse. He values the football, and that's been the formula for this offense. He's doing what this offense wants him to do, right? They live in a world, we've talked about it with the tush push. It is 1st and 9. Everybody, they got a different set of rules there, right? And so you see it on 3rd down. Watch their 3rd down play calling. I mean, this team never throws it past the sticks, right? Again, trying to get to a 4th and 1 so we can tush push, right? They throw, I mean, only Daniel Jones and Gardner Minshew have a lower stick percentage than Jalen Hurts. That's a fact, right? And again, he took the sacks, and he has these games. And I agree with you. This was they could win yesterday in the snow. They may be able next week, right? Washington's run defense is not great. Can they hoist a Lombardi doing this? I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm going to say something I can't prove. If it wasn't for the weather yesterday, the Rams are winning that game.
Yeah,
I think probably should have won it even in the weather that they played in. What is wrong with the passing game in Philadelphia?
Look, obviously it looks a little bit Jalen looks different than he did back in the days when Shane Steichen was the offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. He doesn't look as look. They don't have a whole lot of the same type of RPOs that they had back then.
Right.
It looks a little bit more conservative than it did back then. Look, a lot of the weaponry is still the same. You know, AJ's still there, Devontae's still there, Dallas is still there, and then on top of it, they have Saquon. So I mean, there's probably more weaponry around him than it was even then. But he does look like they have kind of reined him in a little bit and said, "Hey, look, just don't be the reason we lose the game. You don't have to be the reason we win it because we're just so good in other areas right now." And can they win a Super Bowl with this formula? Obviously, the margin for error is shrunk. But as I said in the last hour, on offense, you know, when you're talking about the passing game, to me, from a defensive perspective, you're talking about that is the easiest and quickest way to create explosives. The kind of plays that can turn the game just like that. You can be crap, and all of a sudden, boom, hit somebody for 70 on a big play, right, like Kansas City used to do.
Right.
They do it in a different way. It's not the passing game. It's Saquon.
Right.
Body blow, bloody blow. Here I go, 75 yards. If he keeps doing that and they keep turning the ball over on defense, yeah, they can win the Super Bowl.
What do you see, D-Wood?
I see a team that for so long their identity has been Saquon. Saquon is everything runs through Saquon. Obviously, the offensive line, and they play great defense. There's no question they've done a lot. Winning a lot of games. My question is, what happens when things go differently in the ball game? Mm-hmm. What if you face a high-powered team like the Commanders with a dynamic quarterback that can throw the ball all over the field? You get into a shootout. Now you got to ask your quarterback, "Hey man, now we need you." When we really haven't needed you for a while, but now we need you because the guy on the other side is a dog as well. Now the question is, can he go out there and do it in that situation?
I hear you, but this passing game doesn't have to be calculus, right?
Not.
Like with this offensive line and Saquon, it is like basic arithmetic, right? Hey, listen, we got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown out here, right? And this running game. It doesn't have to be complex, right? Mm-hmm. You just showed it on the clip. Hitches, fades, slants. Like, you don't have to do a whole lot. The opposing defense has to commit so many bodies to the box to stop this run game. You're going to get good looks on the outside. And yet, somehow we're still only throwing for 65 yards in a game. It doesn't add up. It is hard.
Yeah, so I think what they're going to have to figure out is what are the 3 things or the 4 things that they can go to as an offense where, hey, we have to throw the football to go score or win this game over the next week to potentially 2 weeks. I think they really have to hone in on that in Philadelphia because they don't there is a little bit of a predictability right now in their pass game. I think that's why teams are sitting on stuff a little bit more. And then I think when it's close, and Alex knows this, when there's color near his guys, there's not a ton of confidence when he's throwing the football.
Remember, they played each other. The Eagles and Commanders did on December 22nd. Jalen Hurts, that's the game where he got hurt early. He barely played. Jaden Daniels threw 5 touchdowns in that game. Let's see what Sunday brings us. In the meantime, back to the Ravens and the issues for Baltimore and the issues for Lamar Jackson and how do they get past this? Was this their window these last 2 years? Plus, tonight is the night. The window was open. Can the Fighting Irish actually upset the Buckeyes? We're getting you set for the College Football National Championship as we roll on this Pick 6 Monday. The Commanders' Quan Martin hooked up America with 6 free boneless wings at Applebee's. Available for dine-in, delivery, and to-go today. About all the teams that were on the wrong side of divisional weekend. Lewis, let's start with you. If I said the Rams would have won that game yesterday if not for the snow, is that fact or fiction?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's fact because I think the snow and the drop in temperature, especially in the second half, had a lot to do with some of the ball security issues that you see right there with Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams fumbling the ball before that, and I think you're going to see that right here. Yep. Although it was a great punch out by Jalen Carter. But look, Matthew Stafford threw the football as well as you'll see any quarterback in the NFL throw it yesterday, especially in adverse conditions. The dude was on it. They were cutting him up. This game could have been very much so differently yesterday on a level playing surface.
I totally agree. D. Wood, if I said the Lions' Super Bowl window closed Saturday night, is that fact or fiction?
Really, I think it's a fact. I mean, you look at this team, no one doubts the personnel that they have on this team, but you're talking about potentially both of their coordinators, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, potentially taking head coaching jobs for other organizations. That's a lot of brain drain that you could be losing within your organization.
Shefty suggests it's a virtual certainty that both of those coordinators are going to get head coaching jobs probably this week. Alex, if someone said the Texans wasted their best shot at beating Kansas City, would that be fact or fiction?
I'm going to say fiction here. Listen, they certainly had a chance to win this ball game, but this team has such a bright future. I mean, listen, they got a stud at quarterback. He's still on his rookie contract. Derek Stingley Jr., all-pro on a rookie contract. Will Anderson Jr., D'Amico Ryans is unbelievable. Let's not forget where this organization was 3 years ago. It was a dumpster fire. Like, this still bright for this team.
Okay, fair enough. And then, Dan, going back to yesterday, if someone said, and be clear, I'm not saying it, but if someone said Lamar Jackson is at fault for the Ravens losing, is that fact or fiction?
I'm going to say fiction. I think there's a lot of plays that this Ravens organization is going to be able to look at and said, this one goes different, this one goes different. Does some of the turnover issue that showed itself again lead to that or lend itself to that? Yes, but a fumble by Mark Andrews, a drop 2-point conversion, maybe a not batted ball by Milano on another 2-point conversion. There's a lot of reasons why I think the blame game for the quarterback is so stupid when teams win or lose.
I'll take it further than that. I think you're almost underdoing it. I thought Lamar Jackson more than overcame the mistakes he made in the first half and made more than enough plays to win the game, and it was undone. Look, I don't want to put just the quarterbacks always get the blame. Let's just say it. Okay, he's a great player. He's been a great player, and everybody loves him. Mark Andrews lost them that game yesterday. The fumble in the middle of the field and the drop on the 2-point conversion, that's the game. Yeah. The Ravens win the game if not for those 2 plays.
I would agree with that, yes. Like, obviously, those plays stand out. This is what I will say about it with regards to Lamar. The dark cloud is going to follow him. It just is. Lamar's played 94 regular season games. He's had multiple turnovers in those 94 games 14 times. He's played 8 postseason games. He's had multiple turnovers in 4 of them. It is going to follow him. And with all due respect, they're not paying Mark Andrews a gajillion dollars to kind of be that eraser.
Right.
And they are with Lamar. He, more often than not, is. For some reason, he isn't in the playoffs.
Listen, let's not leave the defense out of this either, right? Like, this was the #1 rush defense in the NFL. They ran for 150 yards on him and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the defense is supposed to travel, right? This is a cold weather game, right? They only threw for 120 yards. You needed to stop the run, and this was a defense that had done it all year and couldn't do it yesterday.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of it, and I think what we're all pointing to is the fact, look, we want to hang it on someone or some phase or something, because that just kind of like makes it all feel better for us to say, look, okay, I know exactly what happened. But we know it's always a confluence of things. It's always, a bunch of different things that lead to wins and losses, just like there's a bunch of different things that lead to plays being successful and not successful. Like the first interception of Rashad Bateman, people go, Lamar, what are you doing? You can't throw that play. Well, how do you know that Rashad came out of it the right way?
Right.
How do you know that? I mean, it's not necessarily just Lamar's fault. And when you're talking about Mark Andrews, too, look, the guy's a competitor. The guy's trying to make more yardage. Would you like to see him get vertical? Yeah. Terrell Bernard, give him credit. He's a professional. The dude lined it up perfectly. Sometimes this stuff happens. There's a number of different things. Like that pass, the pass interference, against Tre'Davious White.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at this. That's such a pinpoint play by Terrell Bernard on that play. It's just, you hate it. You hate trying to assign blame. It comes with the territory. But there's just so many things that added up to this game, ended up the way it did.
D-Wood, the thing is that when one team has 430 yards and the other team has 274 yards, and that team wins, something has to have gone wrong, right? I mean, you don't win a game when you get that outgained and that outplayed, candidly. But the Bills made huge plays when they were there to be made. They didn't make any crushing mistakes, and the Ravens did. The question I'll let you answer one time, and then I'm told we have a special guest, is how much of it is fair to put on the quarterback? If someone is going to say this is on Lamar Jackson, they're going to say, oh, Lamar didn't get it done again. What would you say to that person?
He's part of the discussion. He's part of it. He's part of the discussion. He's not all of it, but he's part of it.
The fumble.
The fumble. Listen, what makes Lamar Jackson so special is he always makes special plays. But sometimes you got to understand in the course of a game, when you have weather conditions as they are, you know what? Let me just fall down and let me just play the next play out. You live to fight another day. But because this dude has always made the spectacular, he actually put himself in the worst position, and that led directly to points.
So the great Booger McFarland is standing by. He's going to come on and help us preview the national championship game, but he is listening to our conversation, and I'm told he wants in. Good morning, Booger.
Bull, don't come in here talking crazy now.
Jump. The floor is yours, Booger. Go.
Top of the morning, gentlemen. Listen, come playoff time, guys, what do we always laud Kansas City for? Their best players, like Travis and Patrick, make the plays at the biggest moments. In the biggest games, they make the plays. And so I think it's a very fair statement to say that in Baltimore's biggest moments, the quarterbacks can agree or disagree. Lewis, you or Woody can agree or disagree. Baltimore's best players didn't play big yesterday. And that's Lamar Jackson, and that's Mark Andrews. And I think that's a fair statement to make. Lamar's going to win the MVP, I think. I think he's going to be a 3-time MVP. But it's fair to say that in the biggest moments, he hasn't come up the biggest. And you have to ask the question, why does that continue to happen? And Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, and I also think you have to put it on this coaching staff. What did we talk about when we talk about Derrick Henry? Only 16 carries yesterday. He's got to run the football a little bit more. If he's going to be one of your better players, he's got to touch the football more. And I get it. He dropped the pass out of the backfield. So I think there is enough blame to go around. It's not just one person. But you have to ask the question, how come their best players in Baltimore in the biggest games continue to come up the smallest? Not just one time, okay? Not just 2 times. This has continued to happen. And I think that's a question that if you're John Harbaugh, you have to answer that question, not only for your team, but for yourself.
All right, it's back-to-back years that they looked like the best team going into the playoffs, didn't get it done. I have to keep everyone in dumbfounded silence because we get to the college game with Booger, and then we'll come back and we'll do much more of it. But Booger is here to talk about tonight, exclusively on ESPN, the culmination of the first ever 12-team college football playoff championship. It's Ohio State. It's Notre Dame. It's 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Irish counted out early in the season after losing to Northern Illinois. Many people counting them out again tonight. They're an 8.5-point underdog. But their coach, Marcus Freeman, is confident in his team's ability to overcome adversity.
The journey's never how you foresee it on the front end. And, week 1 with the highest of highs of beating Texas A&M at College Station was a huge win to the following week, the lowest of lows. And, there's things that happen that teach you lessons. And you have to be able to handle success. And now as you get ready to play a great opponent in Ohio State, and Coach Day's done a terrific job, you can't ask them to do something they haven't done before.
All right, Booger, what would a championship tonight mean for Marcus Freeman?
Well, Green, I think if he's able to pull this off, number one, it's going to be one of the biggest upsets that I can remember since '86 when Penn State beat that Miami team. So if he's able to pull this off, I think you have to automatically put him into the upper echelon of college coaching. And we've had some of the behemoths like Nick Saban retire. We're looking for that next new wave of young coach to come. And if Marcus can get his team, who is an underdog, and they deserve to be an underdog because they are outmanned and they are outmatched tonight. But that's where coaching comes in. Can he win the margins in the game where it comes down to where it's special teams, where it's still a possession here, where it's a fourth down call here, where it's a fake punt here? He's got to do his absolute best job of coaching tonight because he is outmanned. But if he's able to do it, Greeny, I think you have to put him at or near the top when it comes to the top 3 or 4 coaches in college football.
Yeah, he can look at this past weekend. All 4 teams that had more yards gained this weekend in the NFL playoffs all lost. So these, crazy things happen. We saw it happen this weekend. Maybe it happens tonight. Very quickly, give me the one way they win it tonight. If we're sitting here tomorrow morning talking about Notre Dame being the national champion, how did they do it?
They're going to need turnovers. They're going to need big plays. And more importantly, they need to get down on their knees right now and talk to touchdown Jesus and say, "Hail, Father, art thou." Put their hands over the Mercedes-Benz Dome today because Greeny, let's face it, they are outmanned tonight. But this ball bounces funny. It bounces different. So he's got to convince his team. And I think this is the number one thing. It's about mindset. And everybody on their desk knows this. Can he convince a team that knows they're outmanned that they can win? The greatest thing that an athlete can have, Greeny, is belief. And if they have belief tonight, I think that's the one way they can keep this game competitive.
We're all looking forward to watching it. Booger, you are the best. Thank you for jumping in, my man. Enjoy tonight. We'll check in tomorrow morning. And let me also mention exclusively right now and for the first time that will all eyes on the College Football Playoff National Championship tonight. We are turning up the volume. We will have a special halftime performance from Travis Scott, who will debut a brand new song during halftime on ESPN of the national championship game tonight. Meanwhile, First Take is there. They're getting ready to go with their show live from Atlanta. Molly, Stephen A., Shannon, Cam Newton, Desmond Howard setting the table for the College Football Playoff National Championship. They're coming up top of the hour. Meanwhile, we have much more on the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and how did this one get away and all the 4 playoff games from this weekend. We'll try and get answers to all those questions, and we'll see if Lewis can answer this one from Sneaky Hembo. So, Lewis.
Yeah.
Josh Allen is 0-3 in the playoffs against Kansas City. Who's the only quarterback to lose 4 games to the same team in the playoffs? The answer is next.
It's a good question.
That's a terrible question because you just gave me the answer that I was going to say. Now I'm going to have to Google it or cheat or something.
Tell me about all these.
Seen just how badly Lewis wants to get this right. He is
It gives me anxiety.
Here we go. Josh Allen is 0-3 in his career against the Chiefs. There is only one quarterback in NFL history that lost 4 playoff games against the same team. Can you name that quarterback?
But don't sit over there having fun with this. This isn't fun. Look, I'm one of 2 guys. It's either Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers. It's either Peyton Manning, New England, Aaron Rodgers, San Francisco. Those are the 2 names that popped into my head.
Okay.
The guys over here, we're mulling it back and forth. I couldn't go to Google. I couldn't go to Siri and ask them. It's one of those 2, so I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers.
That's right. It is Aaron Rodgers. That is correct. It is Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers. They beat him in 2012, 2013, 2019, and 2021. Josh Allen is one of 9 quarterbacks to lose 3 times in the playoffs to the same team.
You know what? Sometimes you step in it and you get it right.
You got it right. That's outstanding.
I was thinking that, and then these guys were I heard Dan over here talking. He's like, hey, well, maybe it was them. Alex Smith was giving me no help. My boy. No, that's good, though.
And so the answer is Aaron Rodgers.
There we go.
Okay, let's get back to where we were. So Booger McFarland made a statement, and because we were about to dive into something else, no one here was able to react, although everyone I could see was dying too. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, a lot of people, I am one of them, will say gave a game away that they absolutely should have won in Buffalo yesterday. The question comes up, because of Lamar Jackson's history in the playoffs, how much of it is fair to place at his lap? Booger McFarland, for those just joining us, what's your answer?
Well, Green, I think you have to place a lot of it at Lamar Jackson's lap, at Mark Andrews' lap. Again, what I said earlier is this. At the biggest moments, when you look at Kansas City and some of the other teams that have gone on, their biggest players make those plays in the biggest moments. I've won 2 Super Bowls, guys. Our best players came up big in the postseason. For whatever reasons, Baltimore's best players yesterday, Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, came up small. He's going to be the MVP. I think 2 things can be true at one time. How come the 3-time MVP, presumptively, can't come up big in the biggest games in the postseason? I think that's a fair statement to make without saying, Lamar, it's your fault, or Mark Andrews, it's your fault. I think Baltimore has to answer that question, along with the part of how come Derrick Henry only got 16 carries yesterday when we thought he was the ultimate weapon in this game against a Buffalo defense that we knew wanted to play small at times.
Okay, so no one was able to respond to that when he said it a minute ago, so I'll let us do it right now. Do you agree that Lamar Jackson did not come up big in big moments?
I totally disagree with that.
Too.
If I had to give you the 3 reasons, I would say, listen, the 2 Mark Andrews plays are huge.
Yes.
The drop 2-point conversion, obviously, and then the fumble. I'd say the second thing is the defense had the fight brought to them. They got out Baltimored by the Buffalo Bills, excuse me. And then, yes, I would say the Lamar Jackson fumble has to be in there because it's a 10-point swing.
D-Wood.
As a champion, I'm all about who makes the game, who makes winning plays.
Yeah, but
who makes the winning? Like the reason we're sitting here arguing. Oh wait, no, hold on. We're sitting here arguing because the Baltimore Ravens had the opportunity to tie the game up and take it into overtime. No one can question the way that Baltimore played in the second half, particularly in that third quarter. But again, compare that to the way Josh Allen played. Who made more winning plays between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson?
I would argue Lamar Jackson did.
I would argue that he played error-free, though.
So error-free is winning football.
Yes.
Right. But error-free is winning football. That's how you win championships.
I agree with that. But the finite focus on just that one singular play and say that's the reason you win or lose is discrediting all the other plays that he also did make to get them into the point.
Should he have run over and handed it to Mark Andrews on the 2-point conversion? I mean, what is it you wanted him to do that he didn't make a winning play?
He played great. And listen, to Booger's point, if I had one complaint about, to really nitpick here, going back to the Derrick Henry thing, they should have run the ball more in the first half. And they should have been more QB-designed runs. Listen, Lamar didn't have a single designed QB run yesterday.
That's wild.
That's absurd. He had 10 the week before when he ran all over the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a cold weather game. You should have relied on this run game. I agree. They dug themselves a hole. And as great as Lamar was, he had a chance to bring him back. But again, one mistake too many, and obviously come up short.
They turned the football over, guys. Why do we not want to accept the fact that he turned the ball over?
You know what? Okay.
Understand this. You can't turn the ball over in games like this. It's okay to criticize Lamar Jackson. I think you guys have a hard time criticizing him and saying, hey, you're the MVP. You were the best player on the field yesterday, but you still made mistakes.
I don't have a hard time criticizing him. Lamar Jackson criticized himself. He said it post-game. You can't turn the football over. We're moving the football up and down the field. You can't turn the football over. I'm tired of this. He's talking to himself. He's not saying it, but he's talking to himself. So, look, we understand that. I'll tell you this. I'm going to push back a little bit on my quarterbacks here and you, Booger, about Todd Monken's play calling. Look, they were being very efficient running the football. Justice Hill was, like, gashing them. And so was Derrick. And you know what? Lamar was making plays with his legs. It wasn't QB design runs. But when things were breaking down, Lamar had multiple plus 10, plus 15-yard plays. But the fact of the matter is this. You're right. Turnover differential decides everything in the NFL, and we know it. We get tired of talking about it, and it decided it yesterday.
Decided the whole weekend.
Yeah,
that's right. Weekend.
I'll go back to it. I do think it's fair to say the 2 plays that stand out in my mind are, one, the Lamar Jackson fumble when he's trying to do too much, and then the Josh non-fumble down on the goal line, 3rd and goal, when he gets hemmed up, and you see him in the moment going, James Cook is there, and instead of doing it, because he's done it in the past, did against Houston in the playoffs a couple years ago, he doesn't. And I do think it is fair to say that those 2 plays, if we want to find them, are huge when it comes to seeing who won and lost.
D-Wood, final word.
Listen, Lamar Jackson, in particular in the second half, was awesome. It was awesome. But the tone I'm getting is like we're trying to talk ourselves into absolving Lamar Jackson from the turnovers. Like that to me, like did you make the winning plays or not?
Here's where I'll push on you with that. If Mark Andrews is open in the flat on a 2-point conversion and he misses them, then we can have that conversation. But he drove down the field and threw the ball to one of his all-time great tight ends, and he just dropped it, dude.
I understand that, but you know where I'm going back. You know where I'm going back to.
The fumble.
The fumble.
And that's a fair thing to say.
But there were so many things that happened after the fumble that they absolutely, he brought them all the way back. He made the mistake, he dug the hole, and then he absolutely brought them out of it and did enough to win the game.
In a team game like this where you have 22 guys on the field, you're not going to be able to just pin it on one dude.
Bring the table over here.
That's what we want to do. You can't just pin it.
It's going to be super quick. We all have to cover our eyes. Booger, we'll see you later.
Bye, Booger.
Here we go.
Bye, Booger.
You're out of here. Get out of here, Booger.
Here we go. D-Wood, everyone cover your eyes because we're running out of time.
You know what? I've never had the goggles on.
One piece of business left. Everyone be real careful here. Don't get yourself hit. D-Wood, national championship game, smash the loser.
Oh, God. I mean, jeez, it hit me in the arm.
That was a very violent.
Jacket, not on that.
That was a very
Don't
violent
scratch my
smash.
jacket up.
The jacket would.
You're going to pay for this thing. I know you got the money, too.
He's got Ohio State tonight. Don't miss it. Everyone here's got Ohio State tonight. That might be just the way Notre Dame likes it. You will see it tonight exclusively on ESPN, 7:30 Eastern. The Irish and the Buckeyes for the first ever 12-team playoff championship. That's tonight, exclusively on ESPN. And First Take is there in Atlanta. They're coming up top of the hour. Molly, Stephen A., Shannon, Cam Newton, Desmond Howard, and more. Setting the table right after this on ESPN.
TaxAct has live experts on hand, so you don't have to worry.
A quick joke.
Did you guys hear about the cheese factory that exploded in France?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Debris is everywhere.
That was actually pretty good.
That was a good one.
First Take starts now.